where I can see how people who don't believe in any gods cope with reality. How do they cope without a God belief? Because I might be in that category now.
Do you find it to be unfortunate that, like when somebody has approached you or you approach them and the first thing they say is, well, you're an atheist. I mean, obviously this is an approach that has nothing really to do with atheism per se. This is an approach that anybody can use. I know theists that are willing to take this approach and use street epistemology because they want to see, again, to challenge people's beliefs and see why people believe what they do. So do you want to avoid that stigma that street epistemology is somehow intricately related to atheism?
I would love to get rid of that stigma, but it's difficult because the book that started this is called A Manual for Creating Atheists. Fortunately, the author himself has come around on this idea that street epistemology should just be for atheists challenging theists. Most of the videos on my channel these days are, and I ask people to pick the topic, and they typically pick a supernatural thing, but it's not always God. They'll pick karma. They'll pick everything happens for a reason. They'll pick The Secret or something else. And we still have the same type of chat, but it's not about a God belief. So yeah, there's two misconceptions. One is that you're proselytizing like a street preacher because of the word street, I think, in the word, and that the examples that are out there are people on the street. And then the second one is that, yes, this is only for atheists to challenge God believers. And there's nothing further from the truth. I would love to see God believers learn this method and like have a Muslim interview a Mormon why they think that their belief is true. And then that Mormon using the same approach with that Muslim, I think would just be perfect.
That's interesting. I don't mean to put either one of you on the spot, but I want to do kind of an experiment. I want to pretend that you just met Steve and take us through. Steve, pick a deeply held belief that you have, and let's see an example of how street epistemology works. So I think this would be fascinating.
Well, that's kind of a difficult way to go. I mean, we all have our beliefs, and I mean, my beliefs are also some of my knowledge, right? I mean, if you take the approach that if you have a deeply held belief, like I believe the universe exists, that's a deeply held belief that I have. It's something that I cannot demonstrate, cannot prove. I have to take axiomatically, but I don't know if something like that would be along the lines would be of interest for street epistemologists to go down.
I think it would be interesting.
Let me just put it this way. Number one, there are hundreds of examples on my YouTube channel and other people's YouTube channels where you can see this happen, where we're not pretending, for one thing. And the second thing I want to point out is that if you just think of this model, and I could share my screen and show you this little triangle thing that I have, or maybe send it to you afterwards, but picture a triangle where it's broken up into thirds. And the top third of that, which is the smallest piece, says belief. And then the center part of that says reasons. And the third bottom part, the largest part of the pyramid, says method. Whether we're questioning some random on the street about God or talking to Steve about reality or how we can know things or whatever, you do want to start with what the person believes. You want to identify the reasons. You want to validate and make sure that those really are the reasons by asking something like, if that could be explained to your satisfaction, would you still be just as confident that the belief is true? And if they say yes, then there's some other reason propping up the belief. So you figure out what is the reason that drives the confidence behind the belief. And then after that is the third and most important part, and I think it's the method. Did you use a reliable method to conclude that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse? And then if they realize that they've used an unreliable method, you circle back to the top of that, right to the belief again, and you ask them, are you still just as confident that that belief is true? If you follow that general template, that seems to be extremely effective in helping a person slow down and reflect on the belief that they hold. So while it would be tempting to go ahead and like role play something or even do one, I'm always a little reluctant to do that, honestly, because if it doesn't go well,
that's fair.
Yeah, let's say it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I've just outlined the schematic of how to do it.
Sure.
Give that a try.
I think what's more important is actually be on the same page as far as what we're talking about as the words, like the word to believe, or like, for example, you might use it slightly different than I might use it. And I think that needs to be clarified initially going into a conversation. Like I use the word to believe, or the phrase believe, to mean that my theory of justification is such that I'm a foundationist. I take properly basic beliefs axiomatically. Not everybody's going to do that. Some people could be Reformed epistemologists. Some people could be infinitism, or a few other things they could be. Now, when you go and you do these street epistemology things, you're not obviously dealing with people that are well-versed in epistemology. You're not dealing with people that have a well-formed theory of justification, theory of knowledge, theory of truth. So if you say, well, how do you know something? They're not going to go back to you and tell you, well, P is true, S believes P, and P is justified P. I mean, they're not going to have that kind of
also, there's a flip side of that. I'm in the same boat. I've never been formally trained in academic epistemology or philosophy or psychology. If I had to go back to school, I think I'd go back to study if I had to go back to school, I think I would study psychology, because it seems like that's what's really going on behind these beliefs. So yes, I'm a layman going out and using layman terms, talking to laymen about beliefs that they hold. Rarely do I encounter somebody who is a theologian or they've studied philosophy for 20 years or something like that. These are just very basic conversations to encourage a person to slow down and think about their belief formation process. That's essentially all there is to it. Now, that journey tends to result in a person questioning their belief or doubting even. And I think that's a healthy thing. So, yes, I'm not an expert in any of these areas. I'm often asked, how do you justify going out there if you're not like trained in this? This is the whole point of Boghossian's book, is to give people just enough skills to go out and have a talk. And watch my videos. They're
great. They're absolutely great. I've binge watched your videos.
Thank you.
They're fantastic.
They are. For real.
They are okay. They might be a little slow, a little boring, as opposed to a heated discussion, but they are fucking incredible in terms of the mechanics of a belief, the psychology behind it, the emotion that is tied to these beliefs. There's something really incredible about this, and we're not still entirely sure what it is that we're doing with it, where we're going with it. We're in the very, very early stages of this, and I'm so excited to be like a part of this community to see where it goes and where we might be in 5 years or so.
A part, you're kind of more than a part. When people say street epistemology, I mean, you come to mind. You kind of are the center, I think, on at least online, YouTube wise. Like you are the. Is that kind of a big burden to have, being kind of looked to as the Mr. Street Epistemology, I guess you would say?
Sometimes it's a little ego boosting, to be honest. Like, hey, we have a street epistemology question. Let's go to Anthony and ask him, because he does this a lot. And then on the other hand, you get a lot of grief from people who they're worried about this method, or they think it's disingenuous, or that you're not qualified enough to have a talk. So then I'm also the go-to guy for that criticism. So it does get on you a little bit, to be frank. But I remind myself of the progress that I can make with somebody on the street. And they tell me how great of a time that they had, and that this was a profound experience having a chat with me about some deeply held belief that they've held. So the benefit of it seems to far outweigh the criticism, but I'm not against hearing criticism. I mean, I encourage it. I welcome that.
And I can tell you that from experience, when I first heard of this, I actually emailed you. I mean, I knew who you were, and we've talked before. And I expressed some criticism that I had, and I got to tell you, it was dealt with professionally. It was dealt with, quickly and resolved. And I was like, this is fine. I mean,
but, good.
Yeah, no, I've talked to you and a few other people, as we know, mutual friend Ozzy, and I think all the criticism I and other people had in the group that I was with, for the most part, was resolved. I mean, the only thing possibly left somebody has said, and I disagree with him on this. I do not think you have to be an expert in any of these fields to go talk to anybody. That's just, anybody can have a conversation with anybody.
Well, to be clear, I don't think Ozzy was making that case either. Was that what you were saying?
No, okay. Not at all. No, I actually, I went to him with, other people, and I went to him with my concerns.
Yeah, we have another podcast, and I was, we had asked Ozzy that same question. do you have to be qualified to do this? And it seemed like he was of the position that no, like anybody can ask a personal question.
Right, and I believe that very strongly. And the other criticism, some people may say it's kind of predatory, and I don't think that it is at all. Your goal is not to change everybody to your position and make everybody think exactly the way you think. Your goal is to have conversations and make people, just kind of question what they believe. I find nothing wrong with that. I do the same thing, and I'm not even a street epistemologist. So
it's a conversation.
Yeah, it does frustrate me when I hear those criticisms that it's predatory, or we're taking advantage of people. And yet that feedback is helping us hone the technique, okay, the method. So, yeah, there was a criticism. You're only picking on people who are ill-prepared to believe in a God. So we started talking to other people who are maybe more trained in that. Or and now I ask people to, like, can you please pick a belief? I'm not even necessarily interested in the God one. I'll talk about whatever belief that they hold. So what I find interesting about the criticism from people who say these people are ill-prepared to handle these types of conversations, they're the same people that don't criticize the believer for holding the belief. I'm okay if Jane over there believes that Jesus is God, but she's certainly not qualified to defend her position.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that bugs me a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Why I would. I mean, look, at any kind of belief you have, I believe that people should be able to defend it in some ways. They may not be articulate enough to do it, but I mean, to say that I have this belief and I'm going to go around telling anybody that my belief is correct, I have an onus to have some kind of, I hate to use the word evidence because it's used, I think, inappropriately sometimes, but you have to have some kind of information as to warrant your belief on something. You can't just say, I believe this. You need to believe the way I believe, but I'm not going to give you any reason as to why you need to believe the reasons the way I believe. That makes no sense to me. Absolutely not.
Right. There should always be some sort of justification for the belief, even if it's, yeah, I guess I was raised with it and I've never really thought about why I have it. Okay, that's acceptable. It's probably not a good reason to really believe very strongly that something is true. But you encounter that enough, and I have beliefs like that too. There are many things that are in my mind that I just believing because I overheard it, I saw something, and I think it's true. But if I was asked about it, it would cause me to probably reflect on it and maybe lower my confidence in it.
Absolutely.
How do you fit all this into 5 minutes?
You broke up just a bit.
How do you fit all of this into 5 minutes, especially when you were going through the pyramid? Like, how do you go through all of those steps realistically in 5 minutes? I mean, that's impressive.
There's a lot more to it than that. You have to build a little rapport. You have to make the person feel comfortable. You have to explain what you're up to. You want to give them a way to contact you at the end. You might have to deal with an interruption or something when their cell phone goes off. So there's way more to it than just what do you believe, why, and how can you be so sure? But 5 minutes is really all you need, honestly.
they tend to run over, though. Most of the ones I've seen tend to run over.
Yeah. So. If you go through my videos, you'll probably find 2 that are 5 minutes long. And those are probably just little quick clips that I've created just for people who are attention. What's the word I'm looking for?
For me, attention deficit disorder.
Yeah, I just can't focus on anything that's more than 3 minutes long. Okay, there are examples out there for you. So the point of those is to get you excited. Like, oh wow, that was really interesting. I want to see a longer talk. So yeah,
teaser.
The average talk that I have is probably 15 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So the 5 minutes gets a person interested. It shows that I'm respecting their time. It's an out for me if the person is not being honest with me, or you can usually get a sense of this person isn't into this talk. They're just too defensive. They're not willing to open up. They're freaked out about the cameras, or they're mumbling, or maybe they have a really strong accent and it's just not going to play well, that type of thing. So yeah, but usually when the 5 minute timer goes off, my interlocutor barely notices, and if they do, they wave it off. Oh, that's okay. Let's keep going. And then we talk for another 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, very few cut off exactly 5 minutes. I mean, I don't even remember seeing one where they said, "Oh, time's up. I'm out of here." They usually won't continue the conversation. I think
what's interesting is these days, and I say that sort of with a caveat because I haven't been out in a few months because I've been busy with interviews and giving talks and stuff. But these days, I have even forgotten to set the timer.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of like a prop at this point.
it's almost like a little bit of a prop, to be quite frank. Like, this guy's going to respect my time. And sometimes people will tap on my board. You didn't set the timer yet. What's going on? So I've even had some people say, I can't do 5, but I could do 3. Let's do 3. So yeah, the timer is somewhat of a prop, but it's a freaking good one because
it is.